Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Big Bros podcast. My name is Jeremy, and welcome if it's your first time joining us on the show. I'm joined by my lovely friend and co-host, Ilan. How are we?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm good. Today, mate, we're talking all things stress, overwhelm, managing it, how we manage it, and not talking necessarily about how to eliminate stress and feelings of overwhelm, because we know that it's just part of feeling and being a human. You are going to feel these things, but it's about how we manage them. What can we do to eliminate ourselves from feeling like stress and overwhelm is getting the better of us, rather how we can get the better of it.
Yeah, that's correct. I really like what you said there, because that's something I say to a lot of the clients I work with, is that it's an unrealistic goal to expect stress to never rear its ugly head in our lives. We know that stress is going to come, but what can we do to manage it? What kind of adaptive coping strategies can we put in place in your own life to ensure that it doesn't get the better of you? And one of the things that is really helpful when it comes to discussing the notion of overwhelm and excessive stress is understanding that our coping and our lives, in a lot of ways, we're like a bucket, right? And imagine every droplet of water is a stressor in your life. If that bucket isn't too full, it's not too bad, right? It's not taking a massive hold of our life. We're feeling somewhat okay and we can manage. But what happens if that bucket continues to overflow with stresses? And these stresses could be big or small. They could be things like deadlines, financial issues, relationship issues, and so forth. What happens if that bucket overflows? What happens at the very, very top? A droplet of water can make it overflow, right? And the best way to counteract that is to ensure that you've got some sort of release valve attached. So what that means is, the water might go in, but it's got some sort of outlet to pass through. Because what that happens then is you're not holding on to that stress. You're not holding on to all that cortisol. You're not holding on to all this discomfort that's absolutely just overwhelming your coping.
I think with that, we can also see that stress is multifaceted. It's not one thing that brings stress in our lives. We're in our mid-20s. We have a lot of stresses, as do people in their 50s, but a lot of them seem to have overlap no matter how old you are. And these stresses, they are emotional stresses, they're physical stresses, they're cognitive stresses, and all of those present in different ways. Emotional stresses, how are you currently navigating feelings of stress and overwhelm within your relationships, perhaps? Are things making you feel sad, angry, apprehensive, worried about certain things? Are they presenting from a relationship lens, from a social setting lens? Then you've got those physical stresses, like you said. Maybe it's about work that you have to do, something physical that you have to get done at work, a deadline, a uni exam. Maybe it's something you're preparing for in the future that you're not certain about how to go about it. Maybe it's a talk you have to give. Whatever it is, there's all these different stresses, and like you said, they can just keep piling up onto each other in a bucket, and eventually it might just be that last one that might be not even big in the grand scheme of things, but it's enough to tip you over the edge. And that's where we see people fall into the trap of having breakdowns, crying, really letting all of that stress and distress pour out. Maybe they start lashing out at other people. And that's the last thing that you want to see happen. That's the last thing you want to experience as someone who is feeling stressed and overwhelmed, because that's when you truly know that this stress and overwhelm has actually beaten you. And that, in a way, can be scary to see that, but it can also serve as a good wake-up call to then go, all right, I don't want that to happen again. How am I going to best prepare next time or from now on, so that I don't get to the stage where I'm breaking down, crying, and pulling my hair out? What am I going to do to firstly understand when that first stress comes into play, and then nip that in the bud, or make it feel a little bit more comfortable and inviting, so that I don't get that next one piling up onto that, and it therefore leaves me feeling comfortable with what I'm dealing with and not scared about what I'm dealing with.
So that's the question of how do you actually be proactive rather than reactive, right? And that's a really, really interesting conversation to have, and I'll explain why. A lot of times we treat self-care and we treat treating our mental health as almost like a luxury, but not a necessity. And that is a massive, massive problem, because if we start treating something that's a necessity like a luxury, and what I say, something like exercise, I wish I had time to exercise. If I have the time to do so, that's a luxury to me. That's a really bad pitfall, because what happens then, if we start neglecting those key pillars that actually maintain our mental health and our ability to cope with stress, then it ends up biting us on the ass. So one of the four things I always chat to my clients about is sleep, nutrition, exercise, and social supports. If you can at least maintain those four to the best of your ability, your stress levels tend not to increase to the same extent than if you weren't going to engage with any of those four things, or at least, you didn't sacrifice one of those four things. So understanding how to actually be proactive about these matters is very, very crucial. Another thing to know is understanding your own early warning signs, understanding when you have become overwhelmed, because there's a difference between being totally, totally overwhelmed and slightly stressed. As an example, when you did an exam at school and you performed really, really well, from 0 to 10, how stressed or anxious or aroused do you reckon you were out of 10?
Depends on the exam firstly, but if it was an exam that I wasn't maybe confident in, then my stress would be higher because I'm not all that confident in performing well. But you can also look at it from the other way. It might be I am really confident about this exam and I am therefore stressed and worried that I might not reach the expectation that
Correct.
I do have upon myself.
I'm going to interrupt you there. What I mean by that is, for example, athletes, when they get ready and they might be nervous, is it okay to have a bit of stress, a lot of stress, or is there a middle point where it might be almost an optimal level of stress? So there's a graph which is essentially shaped like an upside down U curve, which is like out of 10, you want to be around a 4 or a 5, because at that point you're really, really focused, you're aroused and you're engaged. But that's stress we're talking about, right? You want to be a little bit stressed. What we don't want to be is completely on the end of stress where our thinking goes down, our internal software goes down, but also on the same side of the coin, we don't want to be so relaxed that we're not engaged, right? So the reason I'm asking you about that question is, chances are when you did have an exam that you did well on, you weren't completely disengaged. You were probably a level of stress, but a level of stress that wasn't so uncomfortable, but a level of stress that motivated you to work towards something.
Recognizing that there is a little bit of stress there is healthy, because if you don't have any stress there, even if we are talking that little bit, that 3 out of 10 level of stress, if you have absolutely zero, maybe you're asking yourself, well, why am I so overly confident? Am I really overly confident about this to a point where it's actually concerning? Because you see with most sports people talk about their levels of stresses and pressures, they have some level of stimulus. They have something there, that fire in their belly that makes them want to perform a certain way. And that slight level of concern that if they don't perform a certain level of way, there might be repercussions about it. But that little level of it is important because it's propelling them to perform in a way that is most effective and optimal for them, rather than having zero and not a care in the world and going about things very blasé. And look, it's all very good and well to be chilled and stress-free about certain things in life, but I'm a believer that when it comes to your job, your career, your relationships, there needs to be something there, that little surface layer of stress, but good stress that keeps holding you in check really, and keeping you grounded to be better in what you're doing, perform well, perform at a higher level. Because if you don't have that little level of stress, that little level of push, well, maybe you're just too complacent, and you might really be in a situation where you can fall at levels where you don't need to be so well functioning in what you are doing, if that makes sense.
It does. I think what you're speaking to as well is that stress on its own is actually quite healthy, right? We go to the gym and we put stress on our muscle because that's the only way the muscle grows.
To make it grow. Exactly.
And when it comes to stress in our own lives, stress is great until the point where it doesn't stimulate growth.
Like causing an injury in the gym, right?
Correct. So if you lift too much weight and your muscle tears or another muscle has to compensate for it, that's not a very conducive thing. So the question is, in our own lives, is there times where that stress has started to overwhelm us? Because if so, going back to that bucket analogy, what can we actually do to ensure that we have enough release valves so that water can trickle through? So we're not holding on to so much water weight. And the thing is, that's also treating it like a necessity. This is where your self-care plan actually comes into play. This is where you start actually treating it as a necessity and understanding what to prioritize. And I'm a huge believer that if you're at the point of overwhelm, emotional burnout, and you just have no ability to think through what's stressing you out, you need a circuit breaker. And that doesn't start with a cognitive exercise. It starts with a physical one. So what I mean by that is, what is a circuit breaker? Well, it means you're resetting the system. It's almost like you're resetting your computer when it's frozen. Think about our bodies and our minds like that. When we're so stressed and overwhelmed, we're almost frozen. So what a circuit breaker can do, and exercise is a great one. It could be meditation as well. And I'm going to run you through one that I like to do, even in my own life, that's helped me a ton. And it's a breathing exercise. Is what it does is we want to start kind of controlling the secretion of cortisol, which is our stress hormone.
Reboot the system.
And we want to start secreting other hormones that are conducive to us feeling good, whether it be dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, and so forth. So, Jeremy, would you like to be a volunteer?
Let's do it.
Okay, so this is called the physiological sigh. Andrew Huberman loves it. He has promoted this exercise so many times. And the reason it's really, really good is because you can do it any time, anywhere. So let's say you're stressed, you're going to work, you've got an interview coming up, and you've got 5 minutes in the car. This is an excellent thing you can do. So what you're going to do, and on my count, don't do it yet, you're going to take one inhale through the nose, and then at the end, you're going to try and sneak in a little bit more oxygen into your lungs. Then you're going to hold
through the inhale again.
It's a double inhale. And then you're going to hold on for about 5 seconds, and then you're going to slowly release through your mouth for about 6 seconds. Are you ready?
And we can, you guys listening can do it with me. So we'll kick it off together.
And you're going to do it a couple times. So
all right,
here we go.
Count us down.
3, 2, 1, and go. And one more inhale. Now hold. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and exhale. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. One more time. Get it all in. Get it all in. Hold. 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, if you want to get the benefits of it, you probably want to do it a few more times, like 3 to 4, but you can start feeling stuff immediately. What Definitely. Do you notice?
I feel like my heart rate is lower. I feel like my head has decompressed a little bit inside. I don't feel as tight. I feel like lighter. And this can sound like a lot of mumble jumble to the audience, because if I was listening, I would think that way as well. But it does make you feel lighter, and I certainly feel that way now.
Correct. And they did a study on this breathing exercise, the physiological side that you just did, comparing it to other breathing techniques like square breathing. It's as effective, if not more. And why I like it is it's really, really accessible, and you don't have to spend 10, 15 minutes meditating under a lotus tree, as I would say. You can do this anywhere at any point, because it is a circuit breaker and it helps you retain focus, and it trains you to keep focus. Because imagine if you're really, really stressed out. The only thing you want to do is ruminate on what's causing you pain and discomfort. What this does is it trains you to actually take your mind off of that for a bit, albeit 30 to 60 seconds, and concentrate on something that's actually quite healthy.
I think it's a great way to, like we gave in an analogy, reboot the system. You know, you're currently the computer that is frozen, that is bugging out, it's overheating. There's a lot of stress happening to you, and you're looking for that circuit breaker, that restart, that reboot, to at least recognize, okay, this is happening. How am I going to switch myself back to my true self, where I can then take those actionable steps forward to manage what is in front of me? So we've done that circuit breaker. We are not frozen. We're not bugging out as a computer anymore. We are now back to our true selves. Jeremy and Ilan, we are back. Now, what I want to talk about is what we then do to effectively combat the stress and overwhelm that we are facing.
So it's almost like we've taken the Nurofen now, but we haven't beaten the illness.
Exactly. So we've taken our Nurofen, we've taken our anti-inflammatory to bring down those levels of inflammation. Now we need to do the right exercise to actually get better and to combat this. And this is where prioritization is key. And this is the key thing that I want to talk about, because this is what I learned probably from a younger age. I would say from the ages of 16, from working my job whilst in school. So 16, 17, 18, going into those VCE years. Like many of you listening, I was working after school. I'd go work in a chicken shop. I'd finish school. I'd work from 5 to 9:30, and then I'd come home. I'd eat, and I'd have to get my homework done for the next day. So already from a younger age, you're working out, okay, I need to prioritize certain things in my life currently because I need to work, I need to get my homework done, and I need to do school as well. And that's also transitioned then into the later years of university in my early 20s, which things then heightened a little bit more because you've got more things to worry about from a university lens as well as a working lens. So this is applicable to any of you listening, no matter if you're in school, whether you're in university or whether you're in the workplace, because likely you will have a job of some sort, whether it's part-time, casual, full-time. You will have relationships as well in your life, whether that's romantic, whether that's friends, whether that's your family relationships, and you will have hobbies, interests, financial things that you want to work towards that you need to complete as well. So this is where prioritization comes into play. What is the most important thing for you right now? If you are that uni student, maybe you have an exam paper that is due tomorrow, or rather you've got an assignment that is due tomorrow. It's also a Sunday and you want to see your friends. You said that you would see your friends. You'd hang out, you'd maybe go for a yochi, or you'd have a kick of the football, whatever it is. And you also have work to do. Maybe you're working your Sunday job. Maybe you're working at a football club. Maybe you're working at a cafe. Maybe you're working in retail. So here you've got things that you need to get done. You've got family or friends or relationship commitments that you said that you would do. You've got work commitments that you've agreed to your boss, and you've got your assignment to get done by tomorrow, or to hopefully just finish off by tomorrow. You're now feeling stressed. You're feeling anxious about, I need to get all this done. I've got all these people I need to attend to as well. Where the fuck am I going to start? How am I going to start? This is where your prioritization comes into play. What is first in the books here? You've got your work that's in the books, right? You've got that it's set in stone. You've agreed to your boss. You are working from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. That is in the books. You cannot change that unless it's an extreme circumstance. But assuming that it's not an extreme circumstance, you can't change that. That is in the books. Okay, tick. So knowing that, you're already alleviating a little bit of that stress, because you know you can't control this. It is in the books. It's set in stone. You are going to go to work between those hours. What's next in your day are those relationship commitments and then your university commitments. Maybe for you, the most important thing is that assignment being done. Okay, you don't want to leave it till late at night. You have told yourself that you perform better getting it done before midnight strikes. Okay, so you know that you need to do that next. So maybe you will then decide, either I want to get that done before work, before I go to work at 11 a.m., or I'm going to get it done after work, directly after. Maybe you've given yourself some time to relax. You've eaten after work, and then you've come home, 5 o'clock, 5:30 hits. You said, I'm going to sit down for 2-3 hours, nut it out, and I'm not going to leave until I do that. And then your third thing is, maybe that's where you've prioritized your friends or your family or your relationship, whatever it is. Within that as well, you have also communicated with those people around you that this is what you need to do in your day, and this is when you can see them, you can attend to them. It's not saying yes to people. It's not saying yes to tasks that suit them. It's working out what suits you right now and what is going to make you feel less stressed and more comfortable about these stresses that you have in place for you. So then you've done your work, and then the friends and the relationships, that's when you can sprinkle those afterwards, because you've committed to that, and you know that that can also be something that you might look forward to as well. And so just there, what you've done is you've prioritized those certain things. You've gone work, uni, relationships based on what is most important, what has to be done, what cannot change. And therefore you are now not at the top of the bucket of stress. You are right down the bottom because you've recognized those stresses. You've done your system reboot. You've taken your deep breaths as well. And you now know that, okay, I have been able to control what I can control, which will lead us to the next point we'll talk about briefly. But you have most importantly prioritized the things that absolutely must get done now. They cannot change. And then you can fill up those other stresses on the outset of those things.
I like what you mentioned there, because that's all about controlling what you can. But there's going to be times in life where you're stressed out about things that you can't control. And one of the things that we sometimes say to our clients and patients is that, yeah, look, it's going to be debilitating for you, especially if there's things in your life that you want to control, but you can't. And that's a massive source of your worry. It's training yourself to not worry for the entire day, but maybe picking out a 15-20 minute period in the day where you can actually worry, guilt-free. And it's weird because we want to actually decrease worrying. And the thing is, we actually aren't able to decrease it if you don't allow someone a designated period. And it sounds weird because most of the things that we worry about don't actually eventuate. 90 to 95% of the things. I think they literally did a study. They got people to write down all their worries and whether they eventuated, and it was like about 85 to 90%. So what having an actual worry period does is it trains you not to actually ruminate about the topics the entire day. Because what happens if you do that is that it then impairs your functioning. Your concentration goes out the window, your ability to stay present goes out the window, and it's just an uncomfortable experience overall. So having a designated worry period is really, really good. I do want to say one thing though, and we were speaking about how like those other strategies like the breathing, the gym, that could be like a short-term strategy, but realistically, these become long-term strategies, because if you do it enough over a long enough period of time, it's not really just you putting a band-aid over the cracks. That is the medicine in and of itself, because if you know that you're going to have a stressful week at work, but then you know that in the evening you have 2 or 3 hours all to yourself, how would you want to spend that? Okay, well, we want to do something that takes the load off. What's something adaptive? And yes, exercise is one of them. Going for a walk. You know, the amount of benefits that you can get from just going for a walk is insane. And it sounds stupid, but all we're wanting to do is change that neurochemistry. And that's okay if you have a lot of circuit breakers. That means you have a good stress plan. It means you have a good self-care plan. So it's understanding what self-care plans are the most effective for you. Because for me, it's jiu-jitsu, right? There's nothing like grappling with a bunch of men on a sweaty floor on a Tuesday and a Thursday night. That is the best stress relief. And the reason I say that is because you're out of breath. And what happens when you're out of breath? You've got another stressor. So if you're thinking about another stressor, you can't actually multitask. I can't think about the deadlines I have for uni. I can't think about my placement assessments. I can only think about how to get out of this submission where someone's about to break my arm unless I tap. So having the space to actually relocate your attention to other things that stress you out is actually quite adaptive. And that's why I'm a huge believer that becoming stress tolerant is actually something that you should try and achieve. Because if we can't eliminate stress in the same way that we can't eliminate a lot of things in life, we want to at least increase our ability to bear that weight.
You build that undeniable stack of proof that you've done those things many times before, basically. You're talking about habit there. You're talking about things, strategies, effective strategies that you know work for you. And this is the whole thing about prioritizing your stresses and working out the effective strategies that work for you. They're not just band-aid approaches like you've mentioned. They become habits that essentially become a true part of who you are. You will naturally become a less stress-free person once you put these things into practice. In school, I used to feel so much more stressed. I used to work until late hours at night because I didn't have those prioritization skills. I would doom scroll, I'd waste time, I'd be talking on my VCE chat, and then that left me staying up till silly o'clock in the morning doing my work and feeling stressed about it, and then not getting sleep, and then that cycling continuing. So you will stuff up, but when you start putting into play these practices that work for you, and it starts with prioritization, you will naturally become a less stress-free person. And that's how I feel now, because it's not to toot my own horn, but it's just through practice. It's through practice of not allowing those stresses to trickle over that bucket. And it comes with prioritizing. I can't stress that enough. Pun not intended, but it comes with prioritization, working out what you can control right now, what you can't control.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think you have to build that undeniable stack of proof, as you said. And I think it's also understanding what your limitations are, because my stress tolerance is probably going to be different to yours.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that it's actually a healthy thing to get yourself to the point where you're consistently stressed so you can build that limit, because it's the same logic that you would apply. It's like you don't want to you don't want to burn yourself out when you go to the gym, right? You don't want to go spending every day hitting the same muscle group 5-6 times in a week, because that's going to be counterintuitive. You know your limit. But if you are in your 20s and you don't have many responsibilities relative to what you probably will have in 10-15 years, understand what your limitations are and try and extend it a little bit. Don't go overboard with it, but see how long you can work for. See how much stress you can store, but also see how many effective adaptive strategies you can implement in your life, right? Because one thing I always would promote, or say rather, is that it doesn't matter how much water is coming into your bucket. All that matters is that you've got enough release valves, right? And that's why I think I'm really, really hoping that more self-care strategies aren't viewed as a luxury, because it doesn't seem like they're a luxury for you. It's a necessity, right? Just like showering is a necessity, just like brushing your teeth, going to the toilet. These are things that we need to do to just survive. In the same way, self-care operates in that exact same way. And you shouldn't feel guilty about it as well. I think we sometimes feel there's guilt for doing activities that make us feel good, but it's not even to make us feel good. It's to make us function.
Yeah.
And that's the most selfless thing you can do for others. Because some people might be like, how do you have time to go to the gym and exercise? Don't you have other things to attend to? It's like, yeah, I do. But if you want me to bring my best version to those things, chances are I'm going to have to at least attend to my own needs, because we are human beings and we need to be caring for ourselves in the same way we'd care for a young child or a friend and so forth. We need to be really, really, conscientious with how we do these things. So I think understanding that your life is going to have a lot of stress, but what skills can we implement to make sure that that stress doesn't overwhelm and burden us? And if it does burden us, understanding when do we push through versus when do we take a step back.
Yeah, well, that point there about, not feeling guilty for it either is what I want to focus on a little bit here, because I used to be the biggest people pleaser when it came to these things. I knew that, I had to maybe do certain things, or I should say no to certain things, but I would say yes to them. And as an example, it could have been those times where your friends want to go out with you. Your friends are asking you to come for a kick of the football, or to come out and go for a drink that night at the bar on a Saturday night, but you need to get something done. Or you actually just need to chill out at home because you've maybe been working all day, and then tomorrow is going to be another big day for you. Maybe you're working, maybe you've got an assignment to do, and that going out at night is actually just going to make you feel 2 steps back. I used to be that person that would always just say yes. And it comes with realizing that, my friends won't judge me. If they are truly my friends, they won't judge me for looking out for myself here, because they want the best version of myself ultimately. If I can't be the best version of myself, to myself, there's no way I can be the best version of myself to them, to my girlfriend, to whoever it is. You need to therefore work out that, or you need to understand that, like, by showing up for yourself, you're showing up for others. And that's a hard thing to kind of grapple with when you are 18, 19, 20, I feel. We have those people pleasing tendencies. We don't want to miss out. We have FOMO. We want to be within every environment, and we don't want to have those senses of FOMO. But getting, into your later 20s, you start to realize, okay, I am a product of my environment, and my friends won't change who they are towards me if I say no here and there, and if I just rationalize as to why. If I say, I just need to have a night in because I feel like I can't be my best version of myself 2 nights for you, or I'm feeling really stressed, I'm not up for it, but let's do it next week when things are a bit better. If they're your good mates, they'll say yeah. So you shouldn't feel guilty at all.
Unless you make a habit of it.
Because I think
I agree with you. Sometimes one of the issues I've got is in the whole self-care space is that whilst I do believe it's a necessity, I feel like sometimes we overplay self-care so much to the point where it relinquishes our obligations to other people. So we become so selfish in the name of self-care, which yes, at times is necessary, but then it gets to the point where we're like, well, nah, if it's not good for my space and my peace at the moment, I'm not going to do it. And I don't,
Well, it's different if you made commitments to people.
Yeah, because I think that largely speaking, there's two types of people. There's the people who are very, very, very selfish and they only look out for their own self-care, and that comes usually at the cost of relationships. People don't really want to spend time with them. And there's the people who always self-sacrifice and they don't attend to their needs and they only attend to others' needs. And I think those two ends of those extremes aren't good, because ultimately, we've got to protect our peace in life, but sometimes we also have duties and responsibilities that we have to adhere to, whether it's in our relationships, work, and so forth. So it's understanding what, as you said, it's prioritizing what actually is meaningful and valuable to you and going from there, I suppose. So on that note, guys, we hope you guys enjoyed this episode. When this comes out, I think the exam period for most university periods would be ending. So hopefully you're not overly burnt out. And if you are at that point where you are burnt out, remember, self-care is a necessity, not a luxury.
Exactly. It's all about how you can manage your self-care, how you can manage your stress, and not trying to eliminate it, because we all have stresses. We all feel overwhelmed, but it's about how we manage it.
On that note, guys, we hope you have a lovely rest of your Tuesday and an awesome rest of your week.
Bye.